Damn, son, where'd you find this?
People don't be offended by the truth. They be offended because you called out the truth. Simple as that. They don't want to hear any other narrative that makes them look bad.
One thing I can't stand at this big grown age is somebody who act like cause and effect does not exist. Like, yes, your actions caused this outcome. Yes, what you did lit the match. Like, why are you surprised and playing victim?
Guys, Chico, they never lie.
That's how you know somebody doesn't respect you. They listen to reply, not to be understood. They cut you off. They minimize what actually matters to you. They laugh at your boundaries, and then they call you sensitive when you try to hold the line. They show up late. They cancel last minute, forget the things you've told them, because in their world, your time, your energy, even your voice aren't a priority. They're just an option. You see, there are two kinds of people. Those who adjust when they realize they've actually hurt you, and those who expect you to adjust so they don't have to change. You don't need to be disrespected loudly to be disrespected deeply. Sometimes you'll see it. It's just in their tone, in their patterns, in the silence after you're known. Respect isn't what they say when they're watching. It's how they act when they think you'll tolerate it.
By examining his own attitude towards the possibilities of peace, towards the Soviet Union, towards the course of the Cold War.
Art muscle. It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of me.
You see it on the bridge. Wait, how they get it? If the government had to change the screw in the bridge, they had to shut it down. They got state troopers out there. They got lanes closed. They got their strange machines. How did they get up there?
Yo. Good evening, people. How's everybody doing? Happy hump day. We are here. We are alive. We are healthy. I hope all is well. Shout outs to our poets, writers, producers, actors, singers, dancers, content creators. Shout outs to the subscribers, the new incoming commenters, friends, family, loved ones. Thank you all for being here with us. I humbly appreciate your time, your input. Know what day this is. This is one of those particular segments out of the week where we get away from the Hollywood stuff and the emotional stuff, and we kind of get into more. I won't say it's any different, but it's definitely a direction that we don't really acknowledge a lot of. And I got Sydney in the build. I'm gonna bring her up. You already know the energy. Like, share, repost, let the people know we on. I'm gonna turn it over. I'm gonna be in the comment section with the good people. Back and forth, in and out, you know what I'm saying? So do me a solid, make sure you show some love, questions, comments. I'll make sure they get highlighted. Let me bring this up here real quick. What's up?
Hello. How you doing?
I'm cool. Nice little brisk evening. What's the word? How you feeling?
Pretty good. Just right before this, my kids pulled down our shoe rack, so that we had a whole shelf pulled down. But you know, such as being a mom, that's the type of stuff you're going to get with having a kid. As a joke little poem that I wrote, sugar and spice can't have anything nice.
Hey, the joys.
Mm-hmm. But I love them. When they grow up, they'll figure it out. So
Definitely.
poke fun at them for it. So it's okay.
Well, look, we're here, and I'm definitely interested in hearing how you feel about this, like what's going on in your brain. I will definitely be asking questions. You will see a lot of them. I will be narrating and moving in and out of these interwebs. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Matter of fact, let me see some, because for whatever reason they be messing around and they're still doing it. I don't know why they do this. I'm gonna come back to that. I'm gonna turn this over to you. 1 second, and boom. Hold up.
All right. So for today, we're going to be talking about the housing affordability crisis. I really, really wanted to address this problem because, one, this is a really serious problem that I don't think people really realize just how bad it is. But also, it's one of those things that can affect everyone. And in my research that I did before this one, it ended up drifting more towards the stuff about homelessness itself, but it so very closely intertwines with the housing affordability crisis that even though it's going to focus mostly on the homeless populations, it very much applies to people that are still what we call house poor, where they are basically on the edge, living paycheck to paycheck, relying on debt or other methods just to get by. Because the misnomer is that whenever people think of like, oh, you're homeless, they think of the people lying on the street on Hollywood Boulevard or lying in parks or just being like a belligerent person begging for money. Like, they don't really understand the actual face of homelessness. So as I was looking into the stats, I was even shocked myself. I already knew quite a bit on the homeless crisis because I have a soft spot for people that are unhoused. It's conditions that no person should be subjected to, especially in a supposedly first world country. So I'll be talking a lot about homelessness and how it happens and how it intertwines with this affordability crisis that we're currently experiencing here in the US. And this too is not just limited to the United States. Europe and China, Japan, a lot of these as first world countries are also experiencing similar issues, just in different ways. One of the ones that I won't talk much about it, but I just thought I'd mention it. Japan's homelessness crisis I find fairly interesting because they because of the way that it's been made kind of illegal. The people that are homeless are essentially like invisible to society, and a lot of them just like live out in the forest or just like live permanently in these like little motels that they have. And they call these people hikikomori. So if you're ever interested in homelessness in other countries, it is very interesting to learn about homelessness in other places as well, because it does have a different appearance than it does here in the United States. But overall, I'm sure most people are familiar with how goddamn expensive it is to live here in the United States. The median rent overall is, let me pull it up. In general, most places fall between 1,500 and 2,500 for rent, but it can go as high as 3,000. Some places are lucky to be as low as 1,000, but most of those states are the places that people don't really want to live in as much, like the Dakotas, Arkansas, Oklahoma. No offense to anyone that lives there, but they are very the population is not nearly as dense as it is in other places. The highest density of homeless population is in the states that you probably would have guessed: California, Hawaii, New York, Massachusetts. In California, I believe we have the highest number of homeless individuals. And in New York, it's the highest per capita, so the highest percentage per population, which should not come as a surprise. Hawaii is also the same as New York, where they have the highest percentage per population, which again makes a lot of sense given the fact that Hawaii is wildly expensive and it's a tiny island. So not only do you have poor access to affordable housing and you're competing with all of the vacationers, but you also have very limited access to building anywhere else because it's literally an island. And then obviously we know California has it's very expensive to live in a lot of the big cities. It's not as bad in like the San Bernardino area, the desert regions, the kind of mountainous regions. Although if it's picturesque, it's probably going to be expensive. If it's a big city, it's probably going to be expensive. Here in San Diego, just from my own personal experience, we've toyed with the idea of getting a home, but we cannot afford a home out here. We're lucky to have access to military housing because we would have to be making probably double what we make right now just to be able to get a modest size house. Like literally the only thing we'd be able to afford right now is a 1-bedroom house. And that is ridiculous. You cannot live in a 1-bedroom house with 4 people. So it is a great challenge for people to be able to access housing. And yes, the rich are buying out natives. It's also not just the rich, but corporations. Corporations like BlackRock. There are other corporations that I think Vanguard is another one. They're notorious for buying out entire areas of homes. One of the most, to me, saddening examples of this is when there are wildfires. Oftentimes the people whose homes had been burned to the ground cannot return to the properties that they once owned, because once those fires destroy everything, the land evaluators, I forgot what they're called, they come out and they reevaluate the cost of the land and they basically up the price. And so it becomes unaffordable for people to move back to the place that they've always lived in. This happened in Paradise, California, the one that happened in 2018. This has happened in Altadena. This has happened in blanking on the name of the fire, but it was directly opposite along the coast. Both of those happened in 2023, I believe. But it happens a lot where people get pushed out by a disaster. This also happened in Hawaii. We heard about it with the Lahaina fire as well, where a lot of people that were natives and had lived there for generations were not able to move back because people came and took up plots. I mean, we all probably heard the fact that Oprah purchased over 1,600 acres of land over the span of like 10 years or something. She first bought 1,000 acres first, and then I think she bought another 600 after the Lahaina fire. And I remember there was a lot of conspiracy theories that she started the fire, which is not true. But it's still a very real problem. Yeah, and Dwayne Johnson as well. It's a very real issue, and it's another example of this really intense disparity between the rich and poor. How people are struggling to even pay for an apartment or for a one-bedroom house, or even are living with 3 generations of family members just to afford a single house. Meanwhile, we have wealthy people that have like 3-4 vacation homes that they spend maybe a week at a time in. They have one in the Alpines, they have one on an island, they have another somewhere else, and everyone else is just struggling to get anything. So I started to compile a lot of facts, and as I said, I was pretty shocked actually. I knew the homeless crisis was pretty bad, but the statistics are just mind-blowing to me. From 2023 to 2024, homelessness has increased 18%. And this includes both the sheltered homeless and the unsheltered homeless. Unsheltered homeless is what you would typically think of as a homeless person, someone living under a bridge, someone living in a park, someone sleeping on a park bench, and having no place to go. Whereas a sheltered homeless person are people that have a place, but it's not theirs. So they might be sheltering with a friend, living couch surfing. They might be living in a motel chronically. They might be living in a storage unit, living in their car. There's a lot of ways that somebody can be homeless without actually living on the street. But we've had, and this, granted, keep in mind, this is reported. This is 18% of people that they found in a survey. People go out and they count homeless people and they see how many people are out there. They do it based off of like people checking in for services, people reporting it on taxes or whatever. So there's probably more because you're not going to catch everybody. So it is likely that there could even be a higher rate of homelessness than they're even finding and reporting. But the general accepted statistic is about 18% of an 18% increase from 2023 to 2024. And sadly, the number of children experiencing homelessness grew by 33% from 2023 and 2024. There are almost 150,000 children that are living in homelessness. And first-time homelessness has increased 23% since 2019, which is also quite shocking because typically, or more traditionally, people who are homeless are chronically homeless, like their parents were homeless, they ended up becoming homeless as a teenager, maybe they got a house and then they lost housing again. But the first time homelessness has increased almost by a fourth. And just to also give you numbers, there are in the United States right now, there are roughly 770,000 homeless, sheltered and unsheltered people. More people that kind of thankfully are considered sheltered, so they do have a place to go. But it's like 60-40 just from looking at the chart. And even the people that have homes, as I said, are what we're calling house poor, where they're living paycheck to paycheck or they're living on debt just to be able to get by. And as you asked, this has nothing to, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are people that are lazy, but the majority of people that are homeless, that don't have a place to go, that are unsheltered homeless and have somewhere to go, a lot of these people are working 2-3 jobs. There was one interview that I saw recently where she was saying she's making more money than her and her husband ever have in their lifetime. And she was living in a tent in the forest. And she did that because she couldn't pay for food. She couldn't pay for her car. She couldn't pay for any of the necessities that she needed because all of it was going to her house. There's a high percentage of people that are spending 70% or more of their income on just housing. And we all know the cost of everything else, the cost of owning a car, the cost of insurance, the cost of food, the cost of necessities, having to, like, you need to have good hygiene to get by in life. You need to have proper clothes. If you're working, you can't show that you're poor because they'll fire you just because you look poor. There's a lot of demands that we have to do to get by. And not to mention all of the bills that you have, electrical and lights and heat and gas and air conditioning and all that stuff. It's incredibly expensive just to live. And so if you have a house, this is magnified, because then you're also going to have to pay for landscaping, because most areas, if your house gets out of order in the front or the back, they'll come and take your house. They'll come arrest you. They'll do all sorts of things just to make sure that you have a nice looking house. And it like some places now, there's a huge rise in HOAs, housing something associations, where they basically mandate what your house has to look like, what kind of concrete you're allowed to have, what kind of color you're allowed to paint your house, what kind of tiles you're allowed to have on your roof. It gets really ridiculous. That's a whole other can of worms. I could totally talk about it in another episode of just how insane some HOAs are. Like, your plants have to be a certain height. You have to have a certain, like, it's ridiculous. But again, it's there's so much there that I could spend the whole episode just talking about how stupid HOA is. And they can be really, really bad. The poverty level in the United States is $2,400 or roughly $2,500 a month, or sorry, $25,000 a month, which is roughly $2,000 a month, a little bit more than that. Which, if anyone exists, they know $2,000 a month is not a lot to get by. Like, I already know for myself, just from 4 people, we're spending at least $300 just on groceries, and we don't do anything crazy. We buy like yogurt and fruit and like chicken, and occasionally we get like cooking supply, like flour and sugar and stuff like that. Like, I don't buy them sweets. We don't buy prepackaged foods. The only prepackaged foods that we really get are like popcorn, and I buy tortilla chips because I love tortilla chips and queso. But like that, we spend like $150 a month just on groceries, and we're spending kind of the bare minimum for food. And this is something that is like, that's already taking up, let's see, 300, 600, that's $600. So then I would already have chewed up almost half of my income just on food. And then if the average rent, the average cost of housing is $1,500 to $2,500, I would already not be able to afford paying for housing just with food. And that's not including the God knows how many hundreds it is for your car, for your insurance, for your renew your registration, and no, go that way. Can you take her, please? All of the expenses that we have are going to amount to way more than $2,000, and that's the average. Some people don't even make that much. Some people are having to hustle with DoorDash and on other types of things just to be able to get by. And sometimes both people are working multiple jobs and they still can't afford it. Like, the mortgage for houses, when I look it up just on Zillow looking for my own place, most of it is above $3,000. And this is, of course, this is here in San Diego, but it's still relative, because you can also get pretty good jobs in San Diego in comparison to, like, if you tried to move out into the middle of nowhere, maybe the only jobs you'd be able to get would be like at a school or at a gas station or a fast food restaurant, because a lot of places are work poor where they don't have job opportunities at all. And imagine trying to pay for a house on like $10 an hour. Like, we all know how little teachers are paid, how little fast food workers are paid, how little store workers are paid. Like, these people are working, they just aren't able to afford what's available to them. And part of this problem is because there just is not homes available. It is very, very difficult. Let me find the stat. To find access to homes at all. On average, only 35 affordable and available rental homes exist for every 100 extremely low income rental households. So there is a plethora of expensive homes, but for low income families, there's only 35 out of 100. So you're going to be very lucky if one even comes onto the market, because if you think about it, people that are low income, if they get housing, they're not going to be moving. The people that are moving from house to house, those are the ones that are wealthy and can afford to. They're going to be able to hop from house to house and on a whim, like, oh, I want to live in this place now, I want to live here. They're going to be able to afford it more effectively. Though I will mention, we are seeing a higher rate now in the last year of people that are in higher income levels also not being able to afford their homes. People who are millionaires not being able to afford the homes that they live in because property rates, tax rates, and the insurance costs are all going up. Not only are insurance costs going up because of perceived risk, as natural disasters happen more frequently, flooding, storms, earthquakes, volcanic area, that's not as big, but like the big ones are really like flooding and storms. It's increasing insurance costs across the board. Oh, and fires as well. If you live in a picturesque region, you know that insurance is going up. If there's a fire even nearby, even if it's not even close nearby, your insurance is going to start going up because you're still in a high risk area. It also has been increasing because of higher density. More people are moving from locations, like people aren't wanting to live in the middle of nowhere anymore. More people are moving out to cities. They're trying to live on the outskirts of cities. And so as higher density, as places become more dense, you're going to have reduced availability of homes, because as more people move there, they're going to be like, oh, everyone wants to live here. Let's increase the prices. Let's jack it up, because we know everyone wants to move here. So we can get more out of people who are desperate for a place to live. Not only that, but the destruction of a lot of properties, both through natural disasters and through natural decay. A great majority of a high percentage of homes were built between the 50s and 70s. And a lot of them are starting to age out. And sadly, homes that were built between the 50s and the 90s are far, far better quality than any homes that are built today. If you ever want another can of worms, if you ever want to get into it, looking into the quality of houses built after like 2015, it's terrible. Not only because like wood is becoming increasingly hard to get. Old wood forests have much higher quality wood because they're denser and more, they're bigger because the trees were wider, so you get longer planks. They were far, far better quality than what we have now. Like most houses are built with like plywood and just really, it's really bad quality. There's so many videos out there of contractors and like the home inspectors going in just to show how poorly built these homes are. Like literally holes in the wall. You can pull up the plywood, nails sticking out through the wood. It's, again, another can of worms, but it's definitely worth looking into, because if you're interested in buying a house, you have to know what you're getting into. There's also a huge mold issue going around where a lot of homes are being found with black mold, which is deadly if you breathe it in, or it can be. Water damage, lots and lots of issues. So the quality of housing that is being built is not up to par either. And so even if you move into these homes and you do get a home, sometimes you're going to have to spend large quantities of money just fixing everything up and replacing everything and rebuilding and all sorts of stuff. So even if you do get a home, sometimes it can still be a money sink. And then, as I also mentioned, the competition for the remaining good homes is going to allow renters and landlords and home sellers, realtors, whatever, to increase the rates, because they're like, yep, this is what's available. So even though it's a 2-bedroom house, we're going to do $1 million, which is crazy. And if you ever compare pricing to homes, 2000, like, just look at the prices in 2005 to now, and it's crazy. You could have gotten houses for under $100,000, and now if you get a house under $100,000, you can guarantee it was some like trap house at some point, and it's like literally the most disgusting thing, and it's gonna have to be torn down and completely rebuilt. Also, another silent problem that I've been noticing just from my own research on Zillow is there's a tremendous number of houses available on the market that in fine print say that you can't finance them. You have to buy them with cash, which is another way that it benefits investors over actual home buyers, because what normal human being has $250,000 lying around that they can just cash out for a house? The only people that are ever going to buy these places are going to be people that are already independently wealthy or are literally businesses designed to snap up properties. So there's a lot of factors that are making it incredibly hard for any normal person to be able to get a house. Back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, a single family would be able to buy a house with one person working. You could literally have somebody working a factory job being able to still afford a house if they saved and managed their money properly. But nowadays, not a chance. You'll never be able to. And again, some people that have extremely good jobs still can't. Some people are spending $4,000-$5,000 a month just on housing. There's a YouTuber that I was watching that she panhandles on the internet basically. She spends $25,000 a month on her house. The disparity is so wild nowadays. But the other complicating factors is the fact that everything is more expensive. Healthcare, property tax, car costs, food, everything. With everything going up, that's now tacking on to the already unaffordable cost of housing. And we are already also seeing a extreme lack of jobs, people applying to thousands of jobs and not being able to get a single callback, or they get a response and it's like, yeah, sorry, we're not hiring anymore. So many people are really struggling. And one of the biggest communities that are struggling the most are going to be those that cannot work. People like those with mental illnesses, people with physical illnesses, people who are retiring or about to retire. And the statistics of homelessness in general based on your demographic are also wild to me. If you are a single parent, your risk of homelessness is about 36%, or no, sorry. Family homelessness has increased from 1% in 1988 to 36% today. And 83 to 90% of all homeless families are headed by single mothers. So even if they're trying to do the best for their kids, they're still not going to be able to afford to get by. And as we know, if you're a child of homelessness, you're more likely to be homeless as an adult. The single parenthood has tripled since 1960. So you can kind of imagine how many thousands of people are on the brink of or are actually homeless. The lady in the tent that I mentioned earlier, she was living in a tent in the forest with 4 kids and 3 dogs, as well as her husband. And they were working 3 jobs. She was working 3 jobs. He was working 2 jobs just to get by. Like, it's crazy. Ethnicity is also a significant risk for homelessness. The Black or African American community makes up 31.6% of the homeless population, even though they're only 13%, almost 14% of the U.S. population. Hispanic or Latino individuals make up 31% of the homeless population, even though they are only 19% of the population. Native Americans experience the second highest rate of homelessness, with 10% of the entire Native population is considered homeless, despite only 1.2% of them. They're only 1.2% of the population. And they also statistically have less access to housing shelters at a much lower rate than any other demographic. Immigrants and non-English speakers also experience significant difficulty acquiring any form of housing at all. This one I found the most sad. 38% of domestic violence victims become homeless at some point in their lifetime. 90% of homeless women have experienced severe physical or sexual abuse at some point in their lives. And 70% of mothers in homeless families have reported being assaulted by a family member or somebody that they knew. And 1/4 of homeless children have witnessed violence at some point in their life. So the sad thing with the abuse situations is sometimes it's the abuse pushing people out onto the streets because they are basically choosing to become homeless over the risk of that violence. But also, once they're on the street, or the choices that they make to become housed, people that they move in with, they're more likely to be abused because of that. And so it's a vicious cycle where if you've been abused, you're more likely to end up on the streets. If you're on the streets, you're more likely to be abused. And obviously that has its additional complications, because drug addiction, we all associate that with the homeless population. The statistic that's always sat with me, I learned this years ago, I think in college, even though drug use, of course, can increase the likelihood of becoming homeless, because obviously it's harder to hold down a job. You're more likely to miss out on rent or other things that you need to do to maintain the house. Your house is more likely to fall apart because you're not maintaining it. You can't keep up with it. But statistically, more people start using drugs and alcohol to cope with them being homeless, and don't actually start off as an addict. They end up as an addict because they ended up on the streets. And one study in California found that 33% of homeless individuals report regular use, even though 21% of those people who were interviewed for that survey want treatment. They just don't have access to it. So even though a lot of the people on the street don't actually want to they obviously they don't want to be there, but they don't want to be using the substances. They feel like they have to, because one, I can't even imagine, like, I don't want to imagine the type of stuff that people are exposed to. Watching people die, watching people be abused, them being abused themselves, not having access to food, not having access to warmth or kindness or healthcare, anything really. They don't want to use, but they use to escape. I mean, I can understand that. I had an issue smoking, and obviously that's a minor addiction in comparison to something like fentanyl and stuff like that. But I had my own minor addiction when I felt like I had nothing going for myself in my life, and it was hard for me to quit, because it was just the only thing that made me feel good. And so I can totally imagine why somebody would turn to alcohol or drugs to escape that type of situation, just to forget that they're there for just a little bit. And sadly, this makes it so drug overdoses are the leading cause of death for homeless individuals, which is incredibly tragic, especially the fact that most of them probably don't want to be doing that. And not only is it also is another vicious cycle, because even if they want to get out of their situation, oftentimes they can't, because a lot of housing programs require sobriety as a prerequisite. And so you basically have to stop using drugs and alcohol to access the services that can help you not be homeless. But you're using those drugs because you're homeless, and it's obviously incredibly hard to seek help for drug addiction, alcohol addiction, if you don't have health care, and you can't get health care if you don't have a house. A lot of these places that offer health, medical care, and jobs and services that you need require an address. And how are you supposed to get this care if you don't have an address? So it's ridiculous that there's these programs available, that there's ways out, but the access to the way out is not accessible to people without a house. It's crazy. Another incredibly vulnerable group are people with mental illnesses. And again, another vicious cycle, because if you have a mental illness, if you have a chronic illness, that especially ones that prevent mobility or increase your healthcare costs, you're more likely to become homeless. If you aren't able to work, you're more likely to become homeless. But also, if you end up on the streets, not only could it exacerbate existing problems, obviously it's not going to be good for your mental health, it's not going to be good for your physical health, but it can cause these things too. And the drug use and the alcohol use can also tack that on and add to your chances of getting physical, mental ailments. Roughly 25 to 30% of homeless individuals have a severe mental illness, such as schizophrenia. And I believe schizophrenia is one of the highest, one of the most likely conditions, or like one of the most frequent conditions of the homeless population, because of how it affects the mind. For a little background, schizophrenia increases your risk of violent behavior. You have delusional thinking. You can be very suspicious of people, and your mind basically tricks you into believing that like the thoughts in your head are real and are telling you what to do and whatnot. And so you're more likely to make questionable choices and again, end up on the streets, because it's hard for you to manage everything else in life. They're more likely to have hygiene problems. They're obviously more likely to have mood issues, that all of which can make it difficult to have a job and maintain a property. They also found that more than half of homeless individuals or marginally housed individuals have had TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, which far exceeds the rate of the general population, which to me is horrifically sad because you can't prevent that. Most of these people probably didn't get a traumatic brain injury just because they made a stupid choice. Like, it can come from a car accident. It can come from being in certain sports. It can come from being a military veteran. It can come from just an accident or even something that your parents did when you were young. Or abuse. So they also are more likely to end up homeless. Half the homeless population have a brain injury. It's crazy. As I said, these conditions also contribute to substance use because people with mental illness issues, people with chronic pain related physical disabilities are also more likely to turn to drugs to cope with this pain, to cope with the mental issues. And again, it can also increase your risk of developing these things because we all know how drugs and alcohol affect your body. They can cause chronic issues with your liver, with your kidneys, with your lungs, with your heart, with your skin. And that's exacerbated by the fact that you don't have access to healthcare. You don't have consistent access to medication. You don't have consistent medical care check-ins. Like, when you have a chronic disease, oftentimes you have to keep going back to the doctor over and over so they can keep checking in on you and making sure that you're making progress and making sure that you're still doing the things that you need to, and have procedures done to check your body and make sure that things aren't progressing and whatnot. And the considered aspect is hygiene. Like, being unclean in general, extremely dangerous. A lot of diseases can happen in the skin and go into the body. Like, infections can be incredibly dangerous if you don't treat them. They can move into the bone. They can eat away your skin, your face, your muscle. It's horrific. Like, this is types of stuff that people in war zones deal with, people in third world countries deal with, that we humans used to deal with in the 1900s. Like, this is why a paper cut could kill, because infections are incredibly dangerous. We're just so far removed from that world that we don't, as Americans, we don't recognize the severe risk that there is. You can even get a cold that can turn into a brain infection. Like, there's so many different things that can happen just from a minor infection because you don't have access to cleanliness, to soap, to clean water. Not to mention, a lot of them don't have access to clean water. So they might be drinking out of puddles or dirty spigots and stuff like that. And so that can introduce them to diseases, stuff that's passed from other people, using dirty needles. Like, there's so many different ways that they can be introduced to things that can make them sick or paralyze or disable them. Another group, which ties into what we were kind of talking about, are veterans. Veterans are at increased risk because of the intersection of all of these issues: the mental health, the chronic illness, the physical injuries, the TBI injury, traumatic brain injuries, and their age, because a lot of them are at advanced age, because a lot of them might have physical injuries, because they have a lot of them have a hard time translating military skills to real world skills. A lot of them end up unemployed. I believe, if I remember correctly, like 25% of veterans end up being unemployed chronically. And 5% of homeless adults are veterans, and 4 in 10 homeless veterans have no shelter. So it's an incredibly high risk for the people that gave their freedom for this country. They fought for our freedom. They gave up years of their lives to make sure we were safer and had a better life in this country, and they're living on the streets. They don't have access to healthcare. They don't have access to a home, and a lot of them die on the streets. It's horrendous. And then another population, which again should come at no surprise, formerly incarcerated populations. If you have been in jail, you're 10 times more likely to become homeless compared to the general population. If you've been incarcerated more than once, that jumps to 13 times more likely. If you are, and again, another vicious cycle, if you have become homeless after being incarcerated, or even without being incarcerated, you're at risk of being reincarcerated, because a lot of things that homeless people do are labeled as illegal. Sleeping in public spaces, panhandling, public urination, public intoxication. Sometimes they might use theft to get food that they need, breaking and entering, or just being in places that they shouldn't, like accidentally trespassing. There's so many different things that homeless individuals can do that can put them in jail. And so if you've been incarcerated, that massively increases your risk of ending up back in jail just because you're homeless. I've heard of stories of people reoffending on purpose just to get back under a roof, just to be able to have that order and that access to resources that they had before, even though they're back in jail. And even people who have been incarcerated and reformed their behavior, they still are at higher risk. They're 4 times more likely than the rest of the population to end up homeless again. So a lot of these people are ones that already deal with stigma and already have a hard time getting by in society. The last group that I'll mention, or there's 2 more groups that I'll mention. People that are on the LGBT spectrum are this one was crazy to me, 120% more likely to experience homelessness than non-LGBT peers. They make up 40% of all youth that are experiencing homelessness, despite representing only 9% of the overall population. And a lot of this is because they're at a higher risk of being exposed to abuse or being kicked out by their family just because of who they're choosing to be. And it also, they're, even after they're homeless, they're more likely to be victimized because of the way that they are, the way that they live. Oftentimes, not always the case, but sometimes their appearance can lead to them being stigmatized. They often can be stigmatized when they're even trying to get back into housing. And they also are, as I said, when you're exposed to abuse, you're more likely to end up in situations that replicate the conditions that you've lived in before. And then lastly, the population that I see the most right now is the advanced age population, those people that are reaching retirement or have hit retirement. Some people are working into their 80s and 90s just to afford their housing because they don't have access to housing any other way. The share of people who are 55 and older experiencing homelessness has increased 6% from 2023 to 2024. And currently they make up about 20% of the homeless population, which is crazy. And in the videos that I've watched, they're literally old people, like in their 80s, living outside in tents together because that's the only option that they have. And they're still working. It's crazy how many people are still working while also being homeless. Some of the big problems with this. And before I forget to mention, with veterans, the one good bit that I read was that veteran homelessness has actually been decreasing because they've been increasing access to services. So that is one group that's been decreasing their percentage of homelessness, which is a good thing to hear. But again, we've also seen it. Go on out for a sec. I'll be almost done. Where is Dad? I don't know. Go ask Dad. The rate of homelessness everywhere else is still increasing. And a big component to this is the fact that the population is not being served resources that meet demand. There are not enough response teams. There are not enough, as I said, affordable housing. There aren't enough homeless shelters. There aren't enough food banks. There aren't enough health services for people that are homeless. There isn't enough kindness for homeless people. Like, we still see day to day people being mistreated, being kicked, being spit on, being like have things thrown at them because they just happened to be sleeping on the street because they didn't have anywhere to go. Another huge issue, which is much more recent, is people are disappearing. Homeless people are literally just vanishing. I've seen numerous videos, and I've heard this in my personal experience from people I know, where there would be huge encampments with 50 people, and they would be friends with the people in those encampments, and they'd come by and see how they're doing, talk to them, whatnot, and then they would come out the next day and they'd be gone. Everyone would be gone. Their stuff would be there, but the people would all be gone. This happened with my mother-in-law's friend. She had a program where they go out and work with them, try to get them services, try to feed them, stuff like that. And there was one particular area that she was working in, and she went out there, gone. They were all gone. And she would ask around, and nobody knew. They just said overnight, they just all disappeared. And personally, my theory is it's our government, whether it's ICE or some other organization that they've put together to get rid of them. They're removing them. Who knows where they're putting them? Maybe in jail, maybe other things like in the ICE jails. But they're literally being disappeared in the same way that immigrants are being disappeared. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that our politicians, our wealthiest individuals, this whole stigma that they're just lazy moochers off the system and they don't care to work and they don't care to contribute, want to criminalize homelessness. They literally think that they're a scourge on society, a waste of space. And as we saw from that wonderful man on, was it Fox News or whatever, said that he would be cool with euthanizing homeless people, which unfortunately that's not the only person that holds that sentiment. This is a common theme, common thread in the wealthier communities, that they should just be exterminated because it would be more humane than, taking care of them and giving them stuff that they need. I think it was either Finland or Norway. They solved their homelessness crisis by building them houses, seeing how many people they had and building them houses and getting them resources. What a crazy idea. But of course, they don't want to do that because homelessness is a great way to take advantage of people. It's a great way to make sure that you get more and they get less. We're also seeing homelessness be made illegal through other minor methods that are less conspicuous. They're using in a lot of places what's called hostile architecture, where instead of putting out full benches, they'll put out just like seat-sized benches, just like chair-sized benches. That way people can't actually like lay down on a bench and sleep. I've also seen them putting like spikes along the sidewalk. That way people can't lie down on the sidewalk to sleep. Or even, I've even seen it on like benches, which is crazy. I also, as I just said, we shame people who are unhoused and blame them for their condition, even if it has nothing to do with them. We say that they're not working hard enough, even though they're working 3 jobs and still door dashing. And then the stigma also massively increases your likelihood of staying homeless, because if you're homeless, it's hard to get a job, if you're homeless, it's hard to get future housing. If you're homeless, it's hard to get health care. If you're homeless, it's really hard to get other services. And then, of course, if you have other issues tacked onto that, mental illness, health issues, drug issues, stuff like that, you're also drastically less likely to get any of those services as well. And also, with drugs, with mental illness, with TBI, you don't even have the mind to be able to do that. A lot of these people can't, like, they might have a mind of a child. They might just not have a very good understanding of the world. They might be like out of it. Like, we've probably all seen what it's like with somebody that has dementia, or somebody that had been in a car accident and had a brain injury, or someone who had a stroke and survived but had damage. It can be very hard for them to exist, to do things, to function. They might have a hard time walking or talking, or all sorts of other complications. And imagine trying to navigate a complicated system while also being majorly disabled in certain ways. It can, and then also, if you don't have a place to go, you might be jumping from place to place. Like, if you're couch surfing, it can be really hard to be consistent with the things that you need to do, and it can make it harder for you to have access to services, because a lot of them require consistency. And children of parents are more likely to be taken away from them instead of having the system work with them to get them into housing. So instead of being like, oh, we have this family with kids, let's get them housing, they're more like, let's put the kids in foster care and let the parents deal with it. And I have experienced this myself, not to that degree, but when I moved, my husband went to his boot camp and his training, and we had to go to Illinois, Chicago. And while we were there, I had to stay in a long-term motel, like a extended stay. And while I was there, I got a notice from CPS saying that they were investigating me for child abuse because they had listed me as homeless. The place that I had been living at my mom's house, they'd been sending mail to, and I also had to stop going to his doctors. And so they reported me to CPS saying that I had disappeared with my child, and they had no contact with me, and they didn't know where I was, and they couldn't get any mail to me. And so they had been searching for me, and then they finally found me in Illinois. So they issued me a thing, and I had CPS show up at my door to make sure that I was taking care of my kid. And it ended up turning out just fine for me. Obviously, I still have my kids and everything like that. And it was kind of a humorous experience in one respect, where the CPS worker showed up, she interviewed me, she interviewed my kid, she saw where they're living, she saw how I was dealing with him and everything like that. She's like, I don't see any problems here. And she literally walked out of the room, and I could hear her through the door. And this was also partially because of my therapist and something. I had one of those therapy apps, so it wasn't an actual therapist. And so she was the one that kind of started this whole thing. And I heard the CPS on the phone saying, fucking therapist wasting our time. And she was just screaming at her supervisor, this is so stupid. Why would you do this? She's not homeless. She's blah, blah, blah. And they ended up sending me a letter a week later saying that they had closed my case. But it's just an example of how kids are at risk of being taken care of parents that care for them and love them just because they don't have a place. There are probably families that live in hotels, and I would not be surprised if some of them have had that experience before, where CPS was saying, oh, you're not taking care of your child properly because you're not in a house. I know how it can be. And I was lucky because I had this is temporary. My husband's in the military. I have a place to go. This is only, as I said, temporary. We're not going to be doing this forever. And it wasn't technically out of necessity, but there was a lot of people that it is out of necessity. People are living in storage units. People are living in their cars, in RVs, in vans, in tents. They're literally living out in nature because that's the only thing they can do. I've heard of people having to use, I've seen videos of people showing their a day in the life, and they're literally existing using 24-hour gyms to shower and exercise, and then they sleep in their car, or they sleep in a Walmart parking lot, or they sleep on a bench in a park because that's the only place they'll be left alone. I've even heard of people secretly sleeping at their workplaces under their desks. Like, it's crazy what people are having to do just to be able to get by. And I can't imagine having children and having to do this as well. Because again, as you have to move from place to place, they can literally report you for your kid not showing up to work, school, not showing up to a doctor's appointment, for you being at too many different addresses. And again, they're so trigger happy with like, I'm taking away the kids. They don't even care about what the parents are trying to do to make their kids' life better. And they end up putting them in foster care. And we all know how foster care is. It's not the best place for kids to grow up. And there's a lot of issues with that too. And not to mention, but they're making a lot of these methods illegal. It's illegal to sleep in a store. It's illegal to live in a storage unit. It's illegal to live in your car. It's illegal to put your RV anywhere else except a paid space or like long term. I have seen people who were parked in one place long enough that they just came and took it away. Their home. Just like, oh, you've been parked here too long. I'm going to take it. And she was like, I will literally move. Nope. It's too late. We're already moving it. We're already taking it away. It's illegal to live out in nature. It's in a lot of states, it's illegal to not have a registered address. They literally made it illegal to not have a house. It's crazy. And there's a lot of people that end up having to just live in overcrowded homes with families, friends, family members, friends, acquaintances. And even that can be illegal. There's a lot of places that have made it illegal to put a tiny house on your property, even if it's your own property. They've made it illegal for somebody to live in a shed because of proper sanitation issues and whatever. They've made it illegal for more than a certain number of people to live in a house. They've made it illegal for you can't have somebody that doesn't belong on the lease in your apartment for more than a certain amount of time in the house. Like, they literally have to be on the lease, have to be on the agreement for them to be able to live there. So they're making it increasingly harder for anybody to be able to find anywhere to live. So it's either you spend all of your money on your house and afford nothing else, or you're living illegally. Like, it's insane. This is a huge problem, and I don't think people realize just how bad it's going to get, because I track or I've been tracking foreclosures on Zillow, and it blows me away how many foreclosures there have been just in the last month. Like, for anyone that's watching, if you're curious, just look up Zillow. Just go to Zillow and look up, all you have to do is like go to the search, do the search settings or whatever. And all you have to do is just press foreclosures, and dots everywhere across the country, every large city. There's just thousands of homes that are in foreclosure from just the last 30 days. And for those of you that don't know, foreclosures is basically the homeowner has missed more than 4 months of payments. And sometimes people can get those back, but most typically, if you can't reach a settlement, they take your home. It's the banks now. And this is the tip of the iceberg. We are only seeing the beginning. As I said in the beginning, we have seen homelessness increase from 18% from 2023 to 2024. We've already seen what the job crisis has been in the past year. I can't even imagine what 2024 to 2025 or even 25 to 26 is going to look like. And as I said, there's nothing in it. I'm sorry. The poverty level starts at about 24,000, and I think the median income for people is about 50,000. I think. Go get water. It is her nap time, so she's just gonna be grumpy. But currently, let's see, what number is that? The number of households spending 50% or more on their income has increased, has roughly doubled. So people are already not able to afford their housing costs, even with a job. So we've already seen hundreds of thousands of people losing their jobs late in the past couple months. I can't imagine what the housing crisis is going to look like next as this continues, because currently they're probably living on their savings. They're probably hoping they'll find another job. Go downstairs. Go downstairs. So this is really only going to get worse. And as they pass more laws to ban people from being homeless, to make it harder for people to have access to health care, to increase the cost of insurance, to increase the cost of health care insurance itself, this is only going to get worse.
She unpacked a lot. I was in the background listening, and I told you I was going to be floating through here in the comment section. Yeah. I hate to say it, but I agree. It's not going to get any better. And I'm not really going to throw nothing else extra in there. I think you pretty much said everything that needed to be said here. I don't care if they call you frugal. Be frugal. Save your money. Invest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't even want to be in the city, because the city is way too expensive, and they're exploiting the fact that it's a tourist attraction, and that's where all the fun is, allegedly. The museums, the clubs, the restaurants, all that stuff. So, I mean, hey, to each his own with that. But you did your thing.
Thank you. And it's crazy because there was more stats that I could have even put in, but this was already a lot. The one stat I didn't say was they did a survey of the entire United States, and not a single city in the United States, small town or otherwise, large city, had enough permanent housing to meet the need of all of the people in those cities. Nothing in the US had enough.
That's wild, man. That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. We can't do nothing for the people though. We ain't got nowhere for you to go. But you got all of these houses and all these abandoned buildings and properties that ain't getting used for nothing.
So it looks like the average salary of a person in the United States is $66,622. The average income you need to afford a house in the United States is $14,000 to $17,000.
I can see that. Take on 2-3 more jobs
Per person.
Yeah.
Bring back child labor, make them work for their keep. I'm
Pretty
kidding.
much. Yeah. God bless America, man.
God bless poor America.
For real, right now, because there's a lot of people out here in this cold trying to make it work. And we complaining. Not us per se, but there's people complaining. But look, I ain't gonna keep you. Thank you for sharing your information, and just this portion of the week is always important. I hope y'all got something from it. I was definitely tuned in from start to finish, and I'm gonna chop this up, and I'm definitely gonna be sharing it out. Any final words before we close out?
First, I want to thank Roman for showing up, and definitely school indoctrination is a huge issue too. They're hiding quite a lot through how they teach. They hide a lot of history. They hide economics. They hide how to understand facts in the world and whatnot. I'll definitely have to do an episode on that too, because there's a lot to unpack with that. But also, to anybody that might be experiencing homelessness or is experiencing being house poor or has been put into a difficult situation because of the affordability crisis, my heart goes out to you. I'm not as deep into it as some people are. I've been very, very lucky in having a supportive family that's been able to help me. And of course, my husband's job also affords us a lot of resources that other families don't get. But I need you guys to know, like, my heart is with you. I feel how hard it is for people out there, and for anyone whose mental health is being affected by this crisis. I just want you to know, please don't give up. Your life is worth it. And I know this is a really, really scary time to be in, but even though it seems it definitely is going to get worse, I think it's going to get better in certain ways, because we are going to start realizing that we need to come back to community, that we need to stop funding all of these rich a-holes that are stealing everything from us. And we're going to start seeing in the coming years an increase in people supporting each other, people supporting their communities, their families, through churches, through local resources. This was something that people saw during the Great Depression. People started coming together to do farm cooperatives, to help each other get properties. As you brought up, there have been people that have been buying land so they can put housing for people, access to housing on their property. And there are still good people out there. This, of course, this isn't going to get better in one respect, but in another respect, this is going to bring people together. And I have hope that we'll start to make a better country, knowing all of this and seeing all the damage that the wealthy corporate greed has done to us. And so even if it does get difficult, I think it's going to create a new world that will be better for us, as long as we don't keep funding these people. But I pray for everyone who's going through these situations, that you stay safe and that you eventually do find that housing that's right for you and your family.
And with that being said, I want to give a shout out to the people in the chat. Y'all enjoy the rest of your evening. You enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll be back tomorrow. And Drop safe, stay warm, and till next time.
By examining his own attitude towards the possibilities of peace, towards the Soviet Union, towards the course of the Cold War.
Art muscle. It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of me.
You see it on the bridge. Wait, how they get it? If the government had to change the screw in the bridge, they had to shut it down. They got state troopers out there. They got lanes closed. They got their own strange machines. How did they get up there?